Carden. Mr. Carden is an attorney with Butler Snow. He is on the agenda under the city attorney section, but we're going to ask Mr. Carden to just come on up and give his report now. This regards the redistricting of Natchez that has been brought about as a result of the 2020 census. So, Mr. Carden, good morning, and as always, good to see you and have you here.
Likewise, Mayor, members of the board, and thank you for advancing me on the agenda. I wasn't expecting that. So good to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you this morning. I wanted to come this morning and basically I wanted just to kind of I wanted to go over two broad areas with you. The first is just the general process that we will follow with regard to redistricting. And secondly, just wanted to look at the numbers quickly and your existing map and just kind of give you an idea and a feel for what we'll be looking at and what we'll be working on as we work together going forward. First of all, I want to talk to you about the process. And I'm going to outline for you generally what the process will entail. And it probably will be somewhere with a 4 to 6 month period from the time we really start now until the time we end up with your adopting a plan. Of course, today I'm giving you the overview and talking about the proposed schedule. After I leave today, the next step in the process is we will be following up with each one of you individually and sitting down with you individually and letting you share with us characteristics of the district you represent. We want your input and we want your guidance, and we want to hear from you directly. And that will be my demographer, Bill Rigby, and myself will sit down with you. We have, of course, all of the census data on a computer, on a software, computer software that we have in our office. And it has the census numbers, and they're broken down by census block. And so you'll be able to see the census blocks. You'll be able to look at that data, and we'll be able to go over that with you in our interviews. After we've had the individual interviews, then we will work on developing a draft plan or plans. Oftentimes, there's more than one plan that works. And so what we're going to do is we will try to develop, based on the input we receive from you, a proposed plan or plans that we can look at and we can consider, and that we could present for a public hearing. After we get that kind of in place, then we will call upon you to schedule a public hearing, and that will be at a time when it's most convenient for the greatest number of people to attend. And we will have proposed maps at that public hearing, and we'll solicit public input, public comment. We'll want to hear from any interested member of the public about the process, about any one of the districts. And then we'll also take written comments and any documentation and things of that nature. We'll work with your city attorney on getting that set up. And we will facilitate that for you in terms of conducting that public hearing. After we have the public hearing, we'll take what input we've received from the public. You will consider that. And then we will move to develop a plan or plans for you to consider for adoption. And again, we're probably going to be somewhere July of August, somewhere in that range, because we'll work on the individual interviews. In all likelihood, y'all, it's probably going to be May when we do those interviews as opposed to April. We'll shoot for trying to set something up in April, and we'll shoot to set them up personally. We'll come here and be here with you. We may do some things by Zoom if we need to, just depending on what the schedules look like and what things, how things develop. But basically, what the individual interviews, let's look at April and May to work through those. Then the month of June is when we'll really be looking at, developing a draft or drafts. We'll probably also come to you with some redistricting guidelines for you to consider adopting. That's kind of a roadmap of the principles you'll need to follow. And then we'll probably want to set the public hearing sometime, in June for sometime in July or something like that. So that's roughly kind of the schedule that we'll be looking at. You all know we've been operating in a COVID environment and everything's subject to change at any moment. Hopefully we're getting on the tail end of that though, and we won't have as much interruptions and schedules and things of that nature, and we'll be able to kind of go along a more methodical schedule, and hopefully that will work. But we'll have flexibility built in there, and the good news is you have plenty of time. Your elections are a long ways off. At least in the political world, they're a long ways off. But we're going to continue. We will proceed methodically with the understanding that we've got time and there's no reason to rush anything or to try to get anything rushed up. And we'll do that along the way. I will need to get from each one of you, and I may need to get this through the city clerk, mayor, or Brian, in terms of, I need everybody's address. Need everybody's address so that we can plot you on the map. It's very important that we know where you live when we start this process. And so I need to get those addresses. Also, I'll need to get some contact information so that we can contact you to set up interviews. We'll probably try to come here one day and try to get everybody, scheduled during the course of a day if we possibly can. It may take a trip or two, or like I say, we may do some Zoom, just depending on what works out. But if I could get that information at some point in time after the meeting today, if we could coordinate that, that'd be great. That's kind of the process as a whole, and just generally what the process is going to look like. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Any questions, Alderman? Alderman Dillard, you recognize?
Yes, sir.
And just looking at the numbers, the variance, is that the variance between what we believe to be current, the 2020 census, and the previous census? Is that what that number represents?
Alderman Dillard, that's a wonderful segue into the next topic I was going to talk about. Yes, sir. The numbers that you have before you, you have two documents before you. Number one, is the numbers that are entitled Existing Plan Statistics, and the other is simply your ward map that I've printed off of your website. I thought that would be easier in terms of just looking at a map for the time being. Alderman Dillard, the numbers on that existing plan statistics, those are the 2020 census numbers pumped into the existing districts. So those are the current census numbers for your current ward lines, okay? And we call that the benchmark plan. That's the baseline that we operate from because we use these numbers to draw from rather than going back and looking at the 2010 numbers because that's what you did, your last cycle. But we will use these numbers, and the important number for you to see is the one in the lower left-hand corner, that total variance of 15.31. Now, your overall variance cannot exceed 10%, according to the courts and the United States Constitution. And if it does exceed 10%, then that means you do need to redraw. Now, the way you add that up is you go to the district under these numbers that is the least populated, that is the lowest populated, which looks like it's District 2. You see it's a minus 7.7. Then you look at the district that is the most overpopulated, which here is going to be District 6 at 7.54. When you add those two together, that's when you get your 15.31, okay? Our goal in this process will be to get that 15.31 down below 10%. And so that's called one person, one vote. That's the constitutional population requirement that you have to meet. The other significant legal principle we'll be looking at is Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. That is an important law that we need to make sure we're following. And those will be the two primary legal principles we'll be looking at, but there will be a number of other principles we will be considering as well along the way, but those will be the primary ones there. So you see here at 15.31, and I'm going to use a real legal term here, y'all, you're not that far out of whack, okay? You're not very far off from where you need to be. And if you'll look, which is good news, because hopefully that means not as much line movement as you would have to have if you were 25 out, or something like that. But having said that, y'all, it's hard sometimes just to tweak a line between one or two districts, because whatever you do to one generally affects a couple around it and that kind of thing. And I'll give you an example. If you look at your map, so if you look at your map, you see what's happening here generally is the population in wards 1, 2, and 5 is low in terms of the districts. They are districts that need to gain population. And you'll see the populations in Ward 3 and 6 are high. So they need to shed population. Now, Ward 4 is just about right on the money. But, Alderwoman Irving, I rejoice now. But just be patient with us, because your colleagues may want to get some of yours, and so, but that's a great example, though, to demonstrate that you see, of course, what we'll be looking to do is we've got to add population to 1, 2, and 5. We're going to have to get rid of some population in 3 and 6. And, I don't know how that's going to affect everything yet, but that's why we'll be getting your input on the front end to think about how that would affect things and what that would look like. And then we'll try to, massage it so that it works. Because what you want to do here, y'all, in terms of your variance column that you see, all of the numbers in that variance column, you want every one of those to be below 5%. Okay. So you want all of those to be 5, well, really 5 or below. You could have 1 5 and 1 4.99, and that kind of thing. But that's what we'll be looking to do throughout the process. And that's where we get the demographer involved, and we look at the numbers and see what happens from there. Great question, though, Alderman Dillard. I appreciate you bringing that up, because it gets at the heart of what we need to be talking about. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Yes, I am.
Yes, sir.
Fraser?
I'm looking at this. I'm gonna ask you a question, but it might sound kind of far-fetched. In doing this, do y'all work with the Adams County Election Commission?
Well, I tell you, Alderman Fraser, what we do on the front end, we work to get the ward lines adjusted first, and then we'll work with the election commissioners in terms of precincts, and adjusting precincts. We do not draw based on precinct lines. We draw based on census blocks. And so we take the census blocks, and sometimes, sometimes you would hope that the census blocks kind of reflected the precincts, but that's not always the case. But we work to get the ward lines in place first, then we'll work to adjust those precinct lines, because precinct lines are very important. And it's very important that you try to avoid splits and that kind of thing there. And we make those adjustments after we get the ward lines. Good question. Anybody else?
Any other discussion?
I was just gonna ask,
Yes, Alderwoman.
is the county involved as well? Because this would and I'm asking, would this impact their districts as well?
Well, no, ma'am, not in terms of you're drawing your lines. Now, the population in the city is going to affect their districts. I mean, they'll be drawing their lines on their own. But this population in the city is going to affect, and likely will affect the supervisor districts, because there are going to be supervisor districts that come in. I hadn't looked at them, but I'm sure there's some that come into the city.
Oh, yeah.
And so the city population affects the districts in that regard.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, we thank you, Mr. Carden.
I got one more.
Yes, Alderman Frazier.
You said that, you're gonna get, back with us in each, individually, and that, we'll sit down and discuss. You say it's gonna be sometime in June?
No, sir. I'm gonna try to no later than May. I'm gonna see if April works, but I think it's more likely gonna be May when we'll try to do that.
The reason why I asked you that question, I was just like, say, the reason why I asked, it's simply because the reason, if you were saying like June, somewhere in there, I was just gonna say, because that time of year, everybody be on vacation, a lot of people be out of town.
Yes, sir.
And you can't attend a lot of meetings, because we want everybody in the community to be involved.
Oh, yes, sir. Now, let me make sure I understand. See, I'm talking about the individual meetings with each of you. I think you may be talking about the public hearing.
Yes.
Yes, sir. No, sir. We will try to shoot for, we were looking, the way the schedule looks like, it looks like there might be a public hearing in July or so. But we can move that to August if that's better for everybody, because we've got time. Okay. And no, we'll work with you on that. And I will rely on you all to give me direction on what you think's best, because we want to schedule that at a time that is as convenient for the public as possible. And also understand too, we'll probably, I mean, I know you have a website, and I think you're on Facebook. So we will utilize those media as well in terms of making sure the public knows what's going on. Okay.
Mr. Carden, thank you.
Well, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And since you've advanced me, I will assume that gives me permission to leave early.
I think you earned that right.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much,
Have a
and we'll
great
be in
weekend.
touch.
Safe travels
Thank you very much.
back home. Thank you. We also, at this time, we're going to bring up some other individuals who are also on the payroll right now, working hard for the city. And that happens to be some of our fire department personnel who are here for a special occasion today, and that is a special recognition of retired firefighters. And so at this time, I'm going to invite Chief Robert Arrington to come to the podium and address the board.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So today we are here to celebrate some of our retired guys. As firemen, we don't always get to, celebrate ourselves and have a good time. And it's been a little rough. We hit the ground running a year ago, so we hadn't been able to kind of get to this. So today we are here to celebrate. I wish I could get to everybody, but we can only get to the retired guys that retired since I've been in this position. So Alderman Davis, you want to come up?
Also, I'd like the rest of the fire committee to come up too. Alderman Fraser and Alderman Dillon.
Yeah. So first in line, we have retired Battalion Chief David Freeman, also our interim fire chief. Missing today, he wasn't able to come up. Captain Roy Robertson wasn't able to make it today. Next up, Lieutenant Dusty McElwain. Captain Brad Walker. Lieutenant Chris Dunaway. Firefighter Eddie Hawkins. And firefighter Scooter David Hugg. Now, along with these gentlemen we have up here, I want to recognize two other individuals. We just thought that it was pertinent to recognize these guys because our two dinosaurs in the building. So, Acting Battalion Chief Robert Kane. And Captain Chuck Golden. Both of these two men have over 30 years of experience with the Natchez Fire Department. We want to congratulate these guys, thank them for their service. Me personally, I have learned something from everybody on this stage right here. So thank you guys, and we appreciate what you all did.
And I'll stand back here. Let's invite the other aldermen to come up too.
Right here. Good job so far. Good, thank you.
Right here, guys, man. Put your cow back here.
Got it.
All right, one more.
You got everybody dusted?
Looks like I got everybody.
Thank you.
See all the heads, yes. That's a good looking group right there.
All right, so guys, we got one more thing. Upstairs, we got some goodies for y'all. Thanks to Miss Carolyn Deason, our city HR director, and the Firefighter Association. We got some refreshments upstairs, so y'all head up.
I want to say we're so proud of Chief Arrington, and we are so proud of Alderman Davis. I had the pleasure of accompanying them just a couple weeks ago, touring all 4 fire stations. They are working hard for Natchez, and I don't know what we do without them. We're going to give them just a minute to go upstairs, and we appreciate their families and all their support. And y'all, that lady, Caroline Deason, she's doing a good job. Making sure that we get back to giving proper recognition to all of those valuable team players who make Natchez great. All right. We will now, while we are having people come up, I hope the board does not mind. I just don't like making people just sit around. We have with us some gentlemen that are on the agenda a little later, but I want to go ahead and bring them up now because this is just so important to us, and I know they've got some other things they've got to get to. We have Mr. Robert Purnell with us, and Mr. Purnell, I don't know what we do without you. The work you've done for the city on the Proud to Take a Stand monument that was just rededicated a couple weeks ago, and now working on our monument to properly honor the U.S. colored troops. Mr. Purnell has with him also Mr. Devin Heath. All of us are familiar with Mr. Heath, who is our director at Visit Natchez, but also has been chairing the site selection committee for the Natchez U.S. Colored Troops Monument Committee. We also have Dr. Roscoe Barnes, who is also with Visit Natchez and also working on the committee in terms of advertising, communication, PR. And so at this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Purnell, Mr. Heath, to come and address the board.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Board. How are you all today? We have gone through a very extensive process for the site selection for the U.S. Colored Troops Monument, and kind of wanted to share with you a little bit, real briefly. Hopefully you all received this in your packets. The process that we went through so that you can understand exactly how we've gotten to this point. The site selection has reviewed more than 25 sites formally, as well as informally additional sites as well. We created site evaluation form that was evaluating each of those sites consistently across 10 different criteria. And those criteria vary in different areas, including the significance to the U.S. colored troops, and how that site ties into the U.S. colored troops and their involvement here in Natchez, accessibility to both residents of Natchez as well as to visitors coming to Natchez, potential future development and challenges that the site may face down the line, as well as the site flexibility to accommodate different designs and different types of monuments. We hosted a community input session where we opened up to the community to hear their input, and we've invited the community members to provide additional input even after that community session. And it was very beneficial because we did get a lot of feedback subsequent to that meeting as well. And so we received ongoing feedback from the community, and we conducted 2 sets of tours totaling 17 sites. And we'd like to present one of the sites to you today. On the next slide. Dustin, are you doing it? Okay. Thank you, sir. The next slide shows you the site at Madison and Broadway streets. This is the site that the U.S. Colored Troops Monument Committee has approved for the site for the monument. And to share with you why that site, if we go to the next slide, it has a significant amount of significance to the U.S. Colored Troops themselves. This site was actually shared to us in subsequent to the original community meetings. As I mentioned, we had several rounds of input from different members of the community, and this site was actually recommended by Sir Shesh Boxley, and he shared with us some of the information, as well as we were able to get some information from Mimi Miller, as well as from Deborah Fontaine. The Colored Troops Camp was located right below that site. Brown Sawmill is also the site that the Black recruits were actually enlisted there. So it is very close in proximity to where they actually were. They actually would drill. They would come up the hill to drill with their white counterparts in the Union Army at the top of the bluff there. It was also close proximity there to the debarkation for the naval ships, which were right below there. And it is also where the southern edge of Fort McPherson was. And then the contraband camps were also right below there at Leonard's Mill. So with that, again, as I'd mentioned, the U.S. Colored Troops Monument Committee has approved this site we'd like to move forward. The next stages for us to move forward are to move forward with the design committee and their work on finding a design. And we know that there's other entities that have an interest in decision making on this. But for us to move forward with the design, we need to be able to solidify approval for this site. So we are requesting approval from the board for this site to be used for the U.S. Colored Troops
Mr.
Monument.
Mayor.
Alderwoman Hall.
Yes, sir. I would like for the Board of Aldermen to approve the site at Broadway and Madison Street as requested by the site committee of the U.S. Colored Troops Committee, Monument Committee, pending approval by the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, and pending approval by the Natchez Preservation Commission.
Okay, a motion has been made by Alderwoman Hall. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Frazier. Discussion on
Yes.
the motion.
Yes.
Alderman Frazier?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to say, I was a little perturbed about this because I felt that Mr. Boxley should have been involved in it. But after talking to Mr. Heath and Mr. Boxley, who strongly recommended that this site be placed up there, and as we just heard from Mr. Heath, he gave us the inside information on what Mr. Boxley gave him, and there's more to come to this. And I appreciate what you're doing, and I just want to say I appreciate Mr. Boxley, who is an authority on many history that's dealing with the Black community. I feel like he has a lot of wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate his system. I appreciate you and also the city of Natchez for taking this forward.
Thank you, Alderman Frazier. Thank you. Further discussion on the motion?
I too, Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
I just
Alderwoman
want to
Irvin.
say that I thank the committee for putting that together. I also want to thank Mr. Robert Purnell for reaching out. He's been one of the members who has spearheaded it, along with Mr. Boxley. But most importantly, some of the history that I did learn, and I'm hoping to see that we share with not only the members of the community, but our tourists that come in our city once this monument is up and going, learned a lot of information. So that we would do an enactment there at that location. It would provide a space so all of that could take place, and that we would further gain knowledge about our U.S. Colored Troops. And that's so important because that's how history is told and disseminated among the members here in our community and the visitors that will be visiting our city.
Absolutely.
And thank you all. Thank you all for all that you do.
Thank
And
you.
not to mention, Ms. Bonds cannot omit you as well. So thank you for all that you do for our city as well. I know she's a part of one of the committees. as well.
Yes. And I was remiss, I should mention that this was a lot of hard work by a lot of individuals. The U.S. Colored Troops Committee, which is chaired by Mr. Purnell, it has been doing a lot of great work. Several committees have been doing a lot of great work. Just kind of first up to bat, so to speak, has been the Site Selection Committee, and very proud of the work that committee's done, as well as the overall committee.
Mr.
And I
Mayor.
do want to mention, Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
Ms. Deborah Fontaine. Let's
And
not
Ms.
forget her
Fontaine.
as well, because
Absolutely.
I'm on that committee with the research and history.
Yes.
So that's been great.
Absolutely.
All right.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Frazier?
Due to old age and miss, I can't see like I used to. And I want to thank Ms. Kathleen Barnes too for her effort, not only in dealing with the folks of the road. I think that you and Mr. Boxley in getting this off the ground, it's been a long effort, but y'all did. So thank you.
Yes. I'm sorry we can't entertain any comments or questions from the audience. It's
Call
not a
the
public
question.
hearing. The question has been called. Second?
Second.
Second.
All right, the motion now will go to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all.
I want to just say it's amazing the job you've done and the work you put in and the very thorough work you put in. Mr. Purnell, we again, thank you for all you're doing.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and board. I just want to give you a little update on where we are in terms of the Monument Committee. Mr. Lance Harris had his proposal, RFP, and I had it vetted by legal counsel. That has came back. We're going to meet tomorrow. So probably the next phase of this is going to be getting proposals from around the country and beginning to shape what the monument is going to look like. And the thing that we want to do, and we've said this from the beginning, is we want to keep everyone involved, not especially this board, but also the community. So we've had one community meeting, which Mr. Heath took some direction from in relationship to the site. But we're going to also do that with the monument as it go along.
That's awesome.
And just to say, be patient with us, because this is not anything we want to rush. This might take a minute or two. But I also want to just thank the board and all of the persons that's up there. I know I've spoke to a number of you on this, and we want to keep that communication open. So if you have a question or anything, let us know, and we'll come up with an answer, or we'll try and answer it the best we can. But this is all of our project, and I keep saying that. I hate to be redundant, but it's all of our project. So we're open to suggestions. This is not a closed door event.
Thank you so much.
And thank you again.
Thank you. And fundraising is coming along, and we will have another meeting of our fundraising advisory committee soon. Also, I would be remiss if I did not recognize Mr. Darrell White. Mr. White was at Visit Natchez. I was a newbie mayor, and he got me in the car to show me things around Natchez. And that was really one of the first experiences, Mr. White, I had as mayor, getting to see the historic sites that have to do with our U.S. colored troops. And I'll never forget you and forget that. Thank you. Well, we'll keep moving on then.
Okay.
And we're getting some very favorable indications already from the Department of Archives and History. And I've had some good conversation already with Teddy Blunt. And it's very important to note, anything that happens on the bluff has to have a direct correlation to the history of the bluff, being that it is a historic landmark. And it's very impressive to see how already the connection historically is being made between the Natchez U.S. colored troops and that section of the bluff. Thank you very much. We are not going to make Mark LaFrancis wait through a whole meeting. So last but not least, and then we'll get back to our agenda. I'm going to ask you, if you would, Mr. LaFrancis, to come and make a brief presentation to the board of an idea that we have been discussing for some time that I think could be very good for the city and for our veterans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the board. First off, I want to say in regard to the U.S. colored troops, our Homeland Heroes Foundation honored 120 graves of U.S. colored troops this past Reads Across America in December at the Natchez National Cemetery. The first time it's ever been done. So we're kind of engaged with the U.S. colored troops honoring as well. And for any veterans on the board and in the room, thank you for your service.
Amen.
And several of you have, I think, a handout in your packets.
Yes.
I hope. We have operated the museum. I call it the mini museum. It's upstairs in the VFW building since 2018, with a brief close down for COVID, and a magnificent clothing bank for veterans and their loved ones and first responders. We're running out of room. And we need to expand to a place we hope that will make the city proud, make veterans proud, and draw some tourists. And those who come to Natchez will have a wonderful new facility, a museum that they will be excited about. We have some priceless exhibits in the museum. In your handout, you might see a couple of pictures of the GI Joes. And we have the most magnificent collection of authentic GI Joes, I think in about 5 states or more. We have 30 fully outfitted combat GI Joes. And we want to make that the centerpiece of the museum. Where we go will be in your hands and in the mayor's hands. And we're hoping that our recommendation will be received well, and that by a certain date, we can have a grand opening, hopefully before Viking, Mississippi arrives, so they can enjoy what we have to offer. And I'll entertain any questions.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Alderwoman Hall.
I'm not sure we have these documents before us to look at this, and I'm not sure our attorney has had an ample time to assess his recommendation. So I move we table this until our attorney and we can further examine this.
A motion has been made to table pending further review. Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
The motion has been seconded by Alderwoman Irving. Discussion.
His presentation.
Yes, discussion on the motion. We will continue with a discussion. I want to just interject a few words. Mr. LaFrancis, I've been there on site and I've seen your museum. It is an excellent museum. It's on the 2nd floor of the VFW building currently. They also have a very organized protocol for receiving clothes into a clothing bank and making those clothes available to veterans in our community. And many, many veterans have been served. The problem is that, number one, the museum is off the beaten path, so to speak, at the VFW building. It simply is not that available to the average citizen or tourist. Number two, it is on the 2nd floor and it lacks handicap accessibility. And that is a real detriment in trying to serve the needs of veterans. And it is especially sad when some of our disabled veterans are not able to visit their museum and their clothing bank. We here at the City Council Chamber building, we have ample space on the 2nd floor not being utilized. And it is space in this central portion upstairs and the southern portion. This proposal would not involve the northern portion. And I believe Home with Heroes is agreeing to provide some funds for work that needs to be done. That's where some of the review will take place. We need to get into that. Also, we have to look into the legalities. And I would suggest that we would need to follow the model of how the city many years ago went into an agreement with NAPAC, which now celebrates their 22nd anniversary this month. And in March of this year, they are now 22 years old, having formed in 2000. Now, that museum is of such value to our citizens. And we're so excited that the exterior now has been renovated and they are receiving a lot of interest from tour groups from around the country and soon from around the world as the cruise ships are coming back. This would be a similar situation for our veterans. And so I do want to urge consideration. Rapid review is not something we want to get lost in committee. And then I'm looking to the chairman of our Public Buildings Committee, Public Properties, and that's Alderman Dillard. I know Alderman Dillard has a lot of knowledge in this, and our attorney will be of great help. So I'd like to encourage that committee have a meeting very soon, and that Mr. LaFrancis be invited to that meeting, discuss this in more detail, and in due time, bring that proposal in and let's get it approved.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge Chairman of the Board,
Before you
Al
do, just one
Johnson.
second. Alderman Frazier asked to be recognized.
Let-
Alderman Frazier.
Let me just say this, anything that, dealing with veterans and disabled veterans, if Mr. LaFrance put his hand in, it's good. It's gonna be good for the city of Natchez and Adams County. I too, just as long as we get once we get the legality of this taken care of, we need to move forward in getting this done. But we owe this to the veterans of Adams County who
Absolutely.
serve our country very diligently. And this is something that is needed. This is also, like I say, an access to the city of Natchez, as you say, Mr. Mayor, being a museum coming upstairs. We have a lot of people who's touring the country now that are veterans motorcycle groups traveling through the country and everything. So this is something, Mr. LaFrance, I want to commend you and thank you for bringing this forward. This is not just for one vet. This is for all vets, regardless of race, color, or creed. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Frazier. Mr. LaFrancis, you're recognized again.
Thank you. Excuse me. I just want to acknowledge our Chairman of the Board of Home with Heroes is Honorable Forrest Al Johnson.
Thank you.
We're
Mr.
glad
Mayor,
to have you again here at the City Council
you.
chamber. Thank you,
Mr. Mayor, yes.
Yes, Alderwoman Hall.
Mr. Francis, thank you for doing this, and I too look forward, but we have to follow the legal steps involved with this. And I too come from a family of active and retired servicemen, including my father, a deceased Korean vet, as well as his brothers and my uncles and nephews. So thank you very much,
Thank you.
Thank
as
you.
well as my aunt.
Any further discussion? I'll call for the
Thank you,
question.
Call.
Question's been called. We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you. Just let me know where and when I need to be.
Thank you. At this time, just in recognition of our veterans, I would like to call for a moment of silence. The situation in Ukraine and all of the fears and concerns on behalf of our servicemen and women and their families. Let's just have a moment of silence in respect and honor for them. Amen. Thank you. We will now go back to our regular agenda. I'm going to recognize the city clerk for approval of minutes. Madam Clerk.
Requesting approval for the following minutes. We'll go one at a time through these. The February 22nd of 2022 regular meeting. Since those were sent out to you all last week, or earlier this week rather, there were some corrections made to further elaborate on Alderwoman Hall's official report. And then those were the only corrections that we were made aware of. So we would like to get those approved pending any further corrections.
So moved.
Motion made by Alderwoman Hall, seconded by Alderwoman Irving. Discussion on the motion?
Yes, sir. I had some comments too that I want to add to the minutes. I want us to really take a good look at when we're transcribing our minutes. And I want to speak with whoever's doing the minutes, because when you look at some of the comments that are being made, keep in mind that these minutes are going to be for future board members to read, interpret, and possibly follow through for future decisions. And so when we look at how well they're written, we need to go back and summarize. That's all I want to say about that. There's some errors. We are professionals, and it should be written in a more professional way than it is. When we go back and look at some of the comments here, we need to, that people have stated, we need to identify that, even with my comments. Mr. Scott does excellent work, but I want to make sure his bid was the lowest and the best. That's not exactly what I stated. And if we're transcribing the information, then you would have all of that. I even gave the quotes of the bids of each of them, from the lowest to the highest. I gave their name, and I know we don't normally put that in there, but I just want to say, when we are commenting on what other members of the board state in the meetings, let's be a little more precise about what they're saying. Because, and the wording. Okay, so I will give you my corrections, a copy. I will share and let you make a copy of the minutes, because I actually read them here on the minutes. Even with our board attorney, he says that the law states that we must award the bid to the lowest and best bid. He said the best is not always the lowest bid. Then include why he priced. Well, he, include that in the information why he justified that. Okay, this is what it says here in our minutes. I'm not adding or taking away, but those kinds of things need to be included in it. So again, for future boards and for us and any of our members of the community that want to come and get a copy of our minutes, they will be accurate and they will be a lot more detailed. That's all I have to say about that in those minutes.
All
Those
right.
are my corrections.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Any further discussion? Yes, Alderman Dillard.
Again, referring to the same set of minutes on February the 22nd, 2022. Nothing's numbered, but anyhow, the second page at the bottom, Alderman Dillard was talking about the summation of the bids. I believe that the correct name should be Mr. Dunn or Dunn Construction and not Don. It's if you find where it says Alderman Dillard with the summation to the lower third of the page.
Okay, you're exactly right. It shouldn't be done, D-O-N, it should be done,
Okay.
U-N-N.
All right. Correction noted. Any other discussion?
And that's even within the corrected set.
Mhm.
Yes, we're making that notation now. Any other discussion? We
Call
will
the
call for the question. Question's been called. Second.
Second.
We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Next item, Madam Clerk.
All right, the next set of minutes we have is the February 28th of 2022. It was a special call meeting. And so far, we have not been made aware of any needed corrections to these. But asking for approval with any necessary corrections that need to be made aware of this.
Motion has been
Second.
made by Alderwoman Hall, seconded by Alderwoman Irving. Discussion?
I would like to add.
Yes, Alderwoman
I was
Irving.
not available for that meeting, but in advance, I do want to know, because everyone was present with the exception of me, I was absent. And I just want to recognize, and I haven't written in my report, but I just want to go on, since we have this set of minutes, recognize our new board member, Ms. Luana Grinnell Ware. I'm glad that she was nominated, the only candidate that had submitted an application for that position, and I just want to welcome her aboard. I think she would do a great job. She comes from a family of educators. She works at a university herself, so I think she would do a great job being the new added member to the school board.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Thank you. Further discussion?
Call the question.
The question has been called, seconded. We'll proceed now to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, the
Yes.
third and final set of minutes was from the March 1st, 2022 special call meeting. Again, no corrections have been brought to us as far as these minutes are concerned, so I'd like to move forward with approval.
What is the pleasure of the board?
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Alderwoman Irving, seconded by Alderman Davis. Discussion on the motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes. Alderman Dillard?
and I wasn't present in that, so I would have to just read what transpired, but it shows that a motion was made by Alderwoman Hall, seconded by Alderwoman Smith, but there's no discussion or no recount. It may have been too long and too wordy to put anything. It goes right to a vote, so I don't really know what was discussed.
It was a very simple matter. We had various members of the public here, supervisors here, and we wanted to allow for question and answer regarding the airport. There was no discussion. The motion was just made and voted upon, as I recall.
That's correct.
Alderwoman Irving.
Okay, but it should reflect that he was not present. Our minutes should reflect, if all, should
Oh, it
reflect.
does.
It does.
Where?
It does.
reflect that
Let me see
under
where.
consent.
Up at the,
Absent.
below
Alderman Dillard.
present.
I looked at, okay, absent, okay.
Mhm.
Thank you, because I didn't see that. I just looked at board of supervisors. and present.
Certainly.
Okay.
Certainly. Any other discussion? We'll call for the question.
Called.
All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Y'all, we're going to get to the MLK triangle in just a minute, because I just realized that's why y'all are all here. We're going to get to that in just a minute. We did not have any visitors today to address the board. Do we have any other city business? Do we have any unfinished business?
Mr. Mayor.
Alderwoman Hall, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Attorney has presented to the Mayor Board of Aldermen a set of documents and a resolution pertaining to the sale of property at 601 Oak Street. And I'm sure everyone has that in their packets and has read that. Therefore, I move the adoption of the foregoing resolution.
All right.
Second.
The motion has been made by Alderwoman Hall to adopt the, I want to catch up with you, Alderwoman Hall, to approve the sale and transfer of Old General Hospital to James and Ginger Highland, and to accept the document that has been prepared by the city attorney. It's been seconded by Alderwoman Smith. Discussion on the motion.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Alderwoman Irving.
Okay, well, and this document had been given to us. But look at this document. Look at this, the amount of information here. None of this was discussed with us by the attorney. It was given to us. But there's a lot of information to be interpreted in this document. And we have not had any discussion, not even back in executive session or any of that.
We're here to discuss it now.
But 5 minutes is not enough, Mr. Mayor. This is a lot of information to go through. 5 minutes is just not enough to discuss this information because, and the reason why I'm saying it is this. We have an airport that we're supporting. And I'm looking at it and we're a progressive city. We're moving forward. We're getting a lot of attention from throughout the nation. We don't know who is going to be interested in or what could possibly become of that building there at that location. And for us to just sell it to a community member when we are thinking that there's a possibility it could be something else there, if not a assisted living facility, it could be a business. And what would be the future use of the building? If we sell it to that person, what's their plan with it? We're hoping that we have every building that would be accessible for new businesses to come about and attract people here. We don't ever know who's going to be on those flights between here and God knows where that is interested in relocating and they're looking at a specific area. Then that could possibly be a building that they may want to do something with that would in turn put it back on voter roll. We'll be collecting taxes for and a profitable business in increasing revenue. So that's my reason for saying this document, it's no way. The language is it's beyond my head because it's not my expertise. And so for me to go through it and just interpret it on my own, I think that's something that the board needed to do. I mean, the attorney needed to do with the board, even if we had to do a special call meeting.
We're having that meeting now.
Mr.
I would
Mayor.
like to just give an update because we've had various meetings. We've had votes. This is a continuation of a vote that took place several months ago that allowed us to obtain appraisals on the building. The appraisals to be split by the person offering to buy the building, being Ginger Highland and the city. Those appraisals were done. Those appraisals just a short time ago, a couple months ago, I believe, were accepted by this board, entered on the minutes. Those appraisals put a value on this building of $105,000. That being the average of two appraisals, one appraisal, $100,000, the other appraisal, $110,000. Following Mississippi law, the city can sell a property when the appraisals have been given and the board so desires to do that. So today, a motion has been made to do that, and we are now here to discuss that motion. I would say this is a condemned property. It is in a horrible state of repair. It is a liability to the city. It is also setting a poor example for the city of Natchez to own such a dilapidated building when we are urging and soon will be issuing tickets to citizens in our community for dilapidated properties that they own. And we don't have the money to tear it down. We don't have the money to renovate it. It is not a business district. It is a residential area. And this board is already on record not supporting a housing facility there. I'm just bringing everyone up to date with all the actions that have taken place. And because this board has voted against any housing facility there, and since it is not in an area that can be zoned for business, what is the highest and best use? Well, former Mayor Darrell Grinnell is on record, and it has become a policy of this administration that when we have a dilapidated property and a neighboring property owner wishes to purchase it, that we should by all means work with that neighboring property owner. In this situation, the city will be collecting $105,000, and the city will be transferring ownership to someone who will be in a better position to do something with that property. Alderwoman
Mr. Mayor.
Irving, I'm sorry, you had your hand up, and then Alderwoman Irving.
Yes, sir.
I stand corrected. Alderwoman Hall.
Ms. Highland came before this board July 23rd, 2021, offering to purchase this property. The board approved that offer pursuant to two appraisals, and this was done according to Mississippi Code, annotated 1972, section 21-17-1, 2BI.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderwoman Irving, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. I just want to say that there had been a discussion with you, Mayor, and Mrs. Highland, and not the entire board, with her interest in purchasing the building. So when it came back to the board, we received in our minutes and in information, it was on our claims docket where the city had paid for appraisals. And that's how we actually, and I can say that's how I actually, found the information out. Because it came on our claims docket, because I inquired. One of those appraisals were from Jackson, Mississippi, Flowood, Mississippi, to be exact. And so I inquired, and it was for the appraisal of the building. All I'm saying is this, Mr. Mayor, is that we should have information brought to the board and discussed as a whole, instead of three people knowing the information and not disseminating the information to every member of the board. And the conversation that was had, it was not with the entire board. And I'm not questioning whether or not it was bidded out to the public or, the hearing was advertised in the newspaper. I hope that it was, that gave everybody the opportunity to want to. Was it advertised?
I'm sorry,
I'm just asking a question.
If you would go back in the minutes, you'll find the answers to all of your questions, and you'll find that you were present for those votes. The vote was taken, And a public hearing is not required. Mr. Callaway,
Not said advertised.
and no, there is not an advertisement needed as well if you follow this method. Mr. Callaway, if you could review and update the board on the protocols for selling city property that is surplus in nature.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's essentially three ways to dispose of surplus property. One is request for proposals. We could bid it out. We could list it with the realtor, or we could sell it pursuant to 2117-1 2B1, which is obtain 2 appraisals and sell it for the average of 2 appraisals pursuant to statute. This board had elected to do that in July. The appraisals are the value of the property, regardless of who's buying it. And we're selling this for the average of 2 appraisals as required by law, and its surplus property has been declared earlier. And I believe that's the answer to the question,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, unless there's something else y'all like for me to elaborate on.
Thank you. That answers the question. Further discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Alderman Frazier.
You know, I can sit here and argue about this all day. Let me say this. Under the previous mayor administration, we voted to give that building to a young lady from Jackson, Mississippi. Okay, there was a lawsuit was filed. After the lawsuit was filed, it came back to the city. The city of Natchez won that lawsuit. And the young lady could have got that building. For some unforeseen reason, I don't know what happened, why she didn't purchase that building. The lady, one of the plaintiffs on the lawsuit is now the person who was purchasing that building, who's putting through a quick claim. So let me make this clear to the public. This is what transpired now. And so the board, it wasn't a unanimous decision for to do this claim. I'm just gonna be honest with you. So you was the one, Mr. Mayor, who broke the tie, and you stated your reason why that you broke the tie because you stated that it was for the betterment of the community, the people in that area. But this is the point, is where we at now with this quick claim deed, with this appraisal and everything else. So I suggest we just get on to the vote, and we already know which way it's gonna go.
Thank you, Alderman Frazier. Further discussion?
Call the question.
Second?
Second.
The question has been called. We'll proceed to a vote. We'll take this, we'll just ask first, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
We'll proceed with a roll call vote. Alderwoman Hall,
Aye.
Alderman Frazier,
Nay.
Alderwoman Smith,
Got a,
Alderwoman Smith.
got a text that says
She's not on.
Okay.
Alderman Smith is losing service.
Alderwoman Irving,
Nay.
Alderman Davis.
Aye.
Alderman Dillard.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you so much. I want to say, when a citizen is willing to step in and buy dilapidated property for $105,000, if we were to go back in the minutes, I think everyone would have to agree and see that that's the best offer that the city's ever gotten as far as a purchase of that property. We are also following exactly what we did with Margaret Martin just a few months ago. And it is a real happy day when I can say the city will no longer not only be saddled with Margaret Martin, an old building that the city did not need, but we now will no longer be saddled with a condemned hazard to our community, the general hospital, that the city does not need. And we wish the Highlands well in their endeavors, and we thank them for stepping up to beautify their community.
I have a question.
Yes.
What's the future plans for the building?
That will be up to them. They are buying the building as is. They have stated a number of ideas, but we really don't know.
No.
We will see what they do, but it will be returned now rightfully to the property of the towers. Originally, this was part of the towers, and it will now become again part of that historic property. And I also do want to state that it's very important when we sign the documents, Mr. Attorney, that we'll be able to provide them the correct plat that will show the property lines and dimensions of that property. And I believe, we have that. Just
We obtained it via tax patent from the state and
Okay.
quoting the tax patent. in the-
okay, and that should be very clear. All right. With that said, we will move on. Do we have any county business? Department directors reports. We've already had Chief Arrington. Mr. Johnston, I'm going to ask you if you would to approach us with your report, approach the board, and begin with the approval of task order number 10, the phase 2 environmental site assessment involving the Triangle Filling Station.
Yes, sir. Afternoon, Mayor and Board.
Good afternoon.
Following your instruction, I'll have copies of my report, which were given in your special call board meeting packet the other day. Again, approval of task order number 10, phase 2 environmental site assessment, the Triangle Filling Station 231 North MLK, with monies coming from our 2021 EPA Brownfield Coalition Assessment Grant. Staff, along with PPM Consultants, Inc., the city's environmental consultant, is recommending approval of task order number 10 that will include the following field activities for the removal of 3 underground storage tanks and asbestos survey. I can read them out if the board likes, or you can look over them yourself. Total cost of said phase 2 is $90,000, including contingency. Pleasure of the board.
So moved.
Second.
A motion made by Alderwoman Irving, seconded by Alderman Davis. Discussion on the motion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
Um,
Alderman Dillard.
Do these reports end up in the minutes in the bound volumes, or are we just looking at the long sheets? I'm just curious, because that would keep us from having to read every word of this thing. Doesn't
We
these
do
reports
attach
become,
these as, these do those attachments.
do we need a motion for the attachment, or is
It's
it understood?
automatically done, I
Thank
believe,
you, Mr.
Alderman
Mayor.
Dillard. Good question. I want to say, and at this time, since it does involve the MLK Triangle area and the FAR Natchez Friends of the Riverfront are a partner with the city in this and the county as well. I just want to say a thank you to all the work that has been done by Ms. Chesney Doyle and also by the church as the number one stakeholder in that triangle, owning the building and a good bit of that property. And so, Mr. Tony Fields, thank you. We also want to thank Ms. Norma West, who has been more and more active in that area. Really, she has become the liaison with the city and the church in this project. And also, we have to say Reverend Burton Mitchell, who has shown great leadership. So what we are expecting is very soon, those tanks will be removed. That will also allow for an opportunity with a collaboration with the church and business owners in that area to see just how much of that concrete surface could be removed and start the process of converting that to green space. As you know, in the master plan, that is to become Hiram Revels Plaza. And I believe this will provide us a good opportunity to step forward in our first phase of making that plan a reality. And so as we approve this today, I want to encourage a meeting to take place very soon with the stakeholders in that property to be led by Zion Chapel and assisted by Friends of the Riverfront who have been so involved in this and the city. And let's see what we can do so that as we take these tanks up, we can then remove other concrete, but make sure parking is allowed for and understood. We don't want to create any problems for businesses in that area, but this is a chance for us to start moving forward with the plan. And so let this be the first day of that process. We want to see this plan become a reality.
Absolutely.
Any further discussion?
I just want to say at the end, just reiterate what you said, Mayor, about Mrs. Dawes and the 4 Natchez, this board supporting it as well, buying into the vision that we see can take place with the Hiram Rebel Plaza in that area. It's just going to be a win-win for the city of Natchez. It really is, from the forks of the road coming on in down to the plaza to the riverfront. So I see the vision, and it's going to be definitely a positive for the city of Natchez.
We're very excited about that.
Absolutely.
We really are. Alderwoman Hall?
Yes, I would also like to thank Reverend Burden and Mr. Fields, Ms. Doyle, for all of your efforts involved in this as well, Untitled Church. Yes, and Ms. West, yes.
Oh.
Well, I didn't realize Mr. Fields was in there until you called his name earlier, but thank you, because you were there when this was all about to get started. So thank you. Thank you. Look at what you've done on St. Catherine. We reap the benefits, housing, all of that along the walking trails, all that under you, Mr. Fields. And so we do have a lot to be thankful for. It doesn't go unrecognized. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I'll call for the question.
Call.
Question's been called. We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. That's great. And also, it's important to note that this is all happening because of teamwork and that amazing grant and the work that we're having done through Trey Hess and his firm, working so hard to help the city and the county address these hazardous sites.
I'd like to thank Mr. Johnson too for writing the Brownsville grant.
Oh, I was involved with PPM. I did
Yes.
my little part, yes, ma'am.
Well,
Always do that,
a major
Mr.
part.
Johnston.
with that said, Mr. Johnson, the floor goes back to you. And I guess we can now go to the first item on your report.
Yes, sir. ADA aesthetic and sidewalk improvements to 100 block of North MLK.
Yes, we did. I believe we.
Yeah,
did.
we just kept going up.
Got me questioning myself. Okay. Mr. Johnson.
The city is in receipt of the memorandum of agreement between the Mississippi Transportation Commission and city outlining the duties and responsibilities of both parties, approved scope of work, and awarded federal funds totaling $469,100 with local match totaling 20%. Mr. Callaway has been provided a copy of the MOA, and it has passed his review. Staff is requesting a motion by the Board of Aldermen to approve the MOA and to allow the mayor to sign.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderwoman Hall and seconded by Alderman Frazier. Discussion on the motion. We'll just say we are again so grateful to MDOT, to Commissioner Tom King, and all of our friends working with us now to make major changes and improvements to our downtown area. We'll call for the question.
Second.
We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Next item, Mr. Johnson.
Cleaning of illegal dump sites through the city solid waste assistance grant funded by MDEQ. The following quote bids were received for the cleaning of 2 illegal dump sites. The 2 bidders were Dozer Inc. and G. Rayburn Contracting. You see at the 2 sites were 17 Old Browns Lane and 306 McIntyre. You see their respective quotes. After quote bids were received this past Monday by 12 o'clock noon, staff spoke with Garrett Rayburn. Mr. Rayburn has agreed to reduce his price to clean each listed site to $7,000. Staff is requesting a motion to accept the quote of G. Rayburn Contracting to clean illegal dump sites at 17 Old Browns Lane and 306 McIntyre.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderwoman Hall and seconded by Alderman Frazier. Discussion on the motion. And I just want to note, you are getting bids also now to address the illegal dump site immediately behind 1230.
Not yet, no, sir.
We're going to need
Get
a
permission.
separate motion for
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any discussion, further discussion on this motion regarding these two sites? We'll call for the question.
Call.
We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Next item, Mr. Johnson.
In addition, staff is requesting permission to receive quote bids for the cleaning of the legal dump site immediately behind 1230 Watkins Drive.
It's a pleasure.
So moved.
I think Alderman Frazier made the motion
No, that's the second.
and seconded now by Alderwoman Irving. And this is to address that area we discussed last meeting that affects the residents of that area. I believe not only on McIntyre, but also on Daisy
That's
Street. Further discussion? Any further discussion? We will proceed, call for the question.
Call.
Second.
We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Next item, Mr. Johnson.
Page 2, fiscal year 2022 Homeland Security Grant Program through the Mississippi Office of Homeland Security. Staff is requesting a motion to work with the Natchez Fire Department, Chief Arrington, on the preparation of this application for the purchase of an emergency response vehicle to replace the department's 1992 model. The chief is still working on a cost for the vehicle. That's why you still see the blank right there. And note that there is no local match required. It is 100% federal.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Alderman Davis and seconded by Alderman Frazier. Discussion on the motion.
It's free.
Yes? Yeah. Alderman Davis, is wonderful that these funds have been provided, isn't it? Any further discussion? We'll proceed to a vote. Called for the question.
Call.
Second.
We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries.
And my final item, Natchez Railroad at Grade Safety Program, our 2016 Tiger. Staff is requesting a motion to amend the cooperative agreement between the Federal Railroad Administration and the city to change the end date from August 31st, 2023 to March 31st, 2022.
So moved.
All right. Motion made by Alderwoman Irving. I think it was seconded by Alderman Davis. Discussion on the motion. We'll call for the question.
Oh.
We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank you. Mr. Rudder, our building official, we are grateful to see you this afternoon now, and you're recognized.
All right. Afternoon, Mayor and Board.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to get some repairs done to the chiller at Armstrong Library. I'd like to get approval to do that. I'd like to accept a low bid if possible.
What is the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made by Alderman Dillard, seconded by Alderwoman Irving. We'll proceed to a discussion. Any discussion? We'll, all right, call for the question.
Call.
Second.
We'll now proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Make
All right.
sure she puts those proposals in the minutes.
We need the proposals in the minutes. Okay.
And that was for all of them? Will we go back and do the proposals from last meetings that we approved? Will we add those?
I'm talking about for the chiller at Armstrong. We got 2 bids.
But we didn't do it. We had 3 bids for the last meeting. Will we add, I'm just asking, will we add those?
I believe they are
Are they
attached
added?
when they are.
Yes, we do have
Okay.
the attachments.
Okay.
We don't copy all of the attachments
Okay.
to send out.
Just making sure.
Yes, yes. We will now proceed. If y'all will excuse me just a minute.
If they're supposed to be in the minutes. When I got the minutes you referred to on that lowest bid, I went back and watched.
Mr. Mayor,
Filled it.
Yes, Alderman Fraser.
one more thing. Ms. Newsom, would you please, if it is all right with the mayor and the rest of the board, before Mr. Newsom leave, I don't think we ever recognized you. We want to thank you for your service on the school board.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
And we just don't,
Definitely.
you wasn't at the last board meeting or anything, and we just want to thank you for all the years of service that you put forward in this community. So thank you, man. Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Newsom. Thank you, Alderman Fraser.
Yes.
The next item that we have will be the city official reports. Alderwoman Hall.
Yes, sir. I would just like for the public to be patient with, quote, sorry, we are closed, signs unquote, at some of our city parks. Some of the old and unsafe equipment has now been removed in preparation for new playground equipment. And also lights have been replaced on Old Smith Lane and Bob Lee Drive. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Alderman Fraser, your report.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, as the board know, I think a couple of board meetings ago, the former mayor, and Tony Burns and Mr. West came by here. I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, but I'd like to know when can we get this study. This is a study now that we're trying to do in reference to annexing of the city. And I was wondering, when can we bring this back up and make a motion? Do I need to make a motion on this, that we could find some money to do this study, or what? I can make a motion, but like, to me, I don't know about the rest, to me, it is imperative that we get this done, because this is what I call planning for the future of Natchez and the surrounding area. But I just want, like I said, I reiterate again, this is just a study, and we can find money for other things. I think we can find money to do this study. So if I need to make a motion, I can make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Well, of course, Alderman Fraser, you can make a motion anytime you know
I
you
would
would
like,
like.
I would like to make a motion that we find the money to do a study for the annexation of the city of Natchez.
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made by Alderman Fraser to fund a study for annexation. It's been seconded by Alderwoman Irving. Discussion on the motion. Discussion on the motion. I will say that the public comments I have received have not been positive for a discussion of annexation at this time. Having been in office now for a little over a year and a half, going on 2 years, we have had many challenges in dealing with our budget, in making sure that we are properly delivering services to existing areas of our city, and making sure that we are able to pay the salaries of our employees. We've been giving raises. We have formulated a whole new department and fully staffed it, and that is the Department of Parks and Recreation. All of this costs money, and until I am certain that the city can adequately service the areas already in our jurisdiction, already in our city limits, I just can't support discussion of further annexation when I know that to annex further areas increases the city's expense with regard to maintenance of roadways, maintenance of water sewer systems and other systems that are now in the county. not to mention police protection. And we are already challenged to maintain the number of officers for our current city limits, much less incur the cost to provide those services to annexed areas. The board can take whatever action it wishes to take, but I personally cannot support it at this time, with all due respect to the former mayors who did come and address this board, and I have all the respect and admiration for them in the world. But I'm of the opinion you take care of what you have first before you begin looking at ways to add.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderwoman Hall?
after Mr. West and Mr. Byrne gave their presentation a few months ago, I also received calls and personal comments from people who are not ready to annex. They're not ready to annex the city of Natchez or the county into the city. And I'm going to make a motion that we table this. We're not ready to.
I still have a motion on the floor.
Well, a motion to table
I'm going to make a
does,
motion to table
I have a motion
this.
on the table.
Further discussion?
I have to entertain the motion to table the motion.
I will make a motion to table this.
Following our rules.
Yeah, but I have one on the. I have one.
You do, but
Yes.
there has been a motion made now to table your motion.
Robin's rules, brother.
We
I
can
have one.
change
Mr.
yours
Callaway, point of clarification, please.
We just wanted discussion.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
I've asked Mr. Callaway for a point of clarification on our rules.
I think the motion to table would take precedence over the original motion, which would put it on the table until it gets brought back up at the next meeting.
That's my understanding. Do I have a second to the motion to table? Do I have a second to the motion to table? All right, the motion dies for lack of a second. Further discussion. Alderman Dillard?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Your argument that the consideration of any annexations, which precludes the study. The idea of a study is to evaluate whether it is feasible and in the best interest of the city of Natchez. That's one point. The second point is that the services that you're referring to, and in particularly the fire department.
I
the
didn't
city-
mention fire.
Well, I know you didn't, and the
I
reason you didn't is
I
because
wasn't.
we extend our fire protections
That's
to
right.
the entire county of Adams. And the remittance from the Board of Supervisors does not equal the demand from which is causing that cost. We operate on a $2.7 million fire protection budget and receive, I believe, less than $700,000 from the Board of Supervisors for those services. Now, there's some point where we have to realize that we're providing services for the county that we can't afford to keep up, and we're having to lower or higher, whichever way it is, on the fire ratings for the citizens of the city of Natchez. Their ratings go up or down, whichever way that is. They are diminished so that those that live out in the county are improved. So I think that at least brings into my mind a valid reason for a study to understand whether this is a feasible approach or not. I have not received any calls from anyone concerning the idea of annexation. And certainly, I think a study would provide us the kind of information that we could make an intelligent decision on this and not by just what we feel. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Alderwoman Irving is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to say that I have received a number of calls and emails in reference to the study. And it's even been from former aldermen and that had been a part of the board. And so they're asking, why have not the conversation come up again? We need to be having the discussion. And again, I agree with Alderman Dillard. This is just a study. It's just to provide information. It's just a study to provide the information so we can see where we're headed. And that is a form of moving in the right direction if we're looking ahead for the city of Natchez and the growth of Natchez.
Mr. Mayor, I think
Yeah.
we have an alderman
Mr.
online.
Mayor.
Alderwoman Hall.
Mr. Mayor,
I'm sorry, I recognize Alderwoman Hall.
no, I was up first.
Oh,
She already spoke. You don't.
Alderwoman Hall.
I'm going to move again that we table this until we can have further discussion. I heard Alderwoman Sarah Carter Smith on the line.
Okay.
So we
And so Alderwoman Smith has seconded that motion. There is a motion now on the floor to table the motion made by Alderman Frazier.
Point of
Discussion
order.
on that motion.
Point of order, I'd ask the
Yes.
attorney if you can make the same motion again once it failed for a second. Point of
can't
order.
do
I
Mr.
believe,
Attorney,
I'm thinking matter of first impression for me, Mr. Alderman. I've never had it come up twice.
Exactly.
I don't know why I couldn't, but I don't.
I would say, I would suggest that Alderwoman Smith could make a motion if she desires to make a
No,
motion.
Mr. Mayor, I think y'all please playing a double.
I don't think we're playing anything. We're just,
The matter's already.
I'm transparent. I've already said I don't believe this is something that we need to entertain at this time.
May I, Mr. Mayor?
I'm just being transparent.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
I am entertaining the motion. The motion has been made and seconded. As we know, we have had technical issues. Alderwoman Smith is a duly elected member of this board. It is her desire to second the motion. She had an interruption. She now has. She is in the meeting. Now, Alderman Frazier, I recognize you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is, we up here arguing about, this is just a simple request for a study. This is all we have. Now, we can find money to do a study for the airport, which is out in the county, which we can find, as I stated earlier, we can find money for other different things. This is just simply a study. This is nothing concrete. As I stated, this is for the future nation. If we don't do a study and see what we can do, we are losing people's population every day. If we don't do something to bring Natchez forward, we're gonna look around and cross the river, and by then you're gonna be bigger than Natchez. So we got to do something
I beg to differ. Facts, it has been said that facts are stubborn things. We can't argue with facts. We have sold over 600 houses in the last year and a half. So what statistics are you using?
What
to
statistics are
base-
you using, Mr. Mayor?
Over 600 houses
But I'm
sold.
just saying, but you go across the
A
river.
record number of
You
new
go across the river,
businesses,
and by
new
then
jobs.
You see it growing. Natchez is not growing.
We're
You
growing.
go down. We don't even have a decent burger shop. We don't have a decent Waffle House in Natchez.
We are growing.
How we growing?
We are growing.
We don't make,
Further discussion?
call the question.
The question's been called. This is on the motion to table.
Second.
We will proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion to table, indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed, nay.
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 The ayes have been outnumbered. The nays, with the motion fails. We now go back to the original motion, which is for us to have a study done on annexation. Further discussion on that motion. We'll call for the question.
Call.
Mr. Mayor, could we have a roll call vote?
Yes. A roll call vote, we certainly will. So the motion, the tables, I'm sorry, the question has been called. We'll proceed to a roll call vote. Alderwoman Hall,
Nay.
Alderman Frazier,
Aye.
Alderwoman Smith,
Nay.
Alderwoman Irving,
Aye.
Alderman Davis,
Aye.
Alderman Dillard.
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries. We will proceed then in having a study funded, and we'll come back with the price of what a study would cost. But I do want to say it's important that we have our facts straight. Natchez is growing. In fact, we are one of the fastest growing economies, and our sales tax alone indicates that. We now are outpacing so many cities in this state. In addition to that, record real estate sales, new jobs, new businesses, new restaurants. And so I just can't sit here and let anyone say that Natchez is dying, because that is not true. We'll now proceed to
What's that? Excuse me.
Alderman Frazier.
I'm not through.
It's your report.
Okay. I'm not gonna get back and forth with you about the health and status of the city of Natchez. One more thing, I just want to say that he just stepped outside. the NAACP had a forum, and I want to thank Mr. James Johnson who attended that forum, and I think he held up very good. He informed everyone what the city of Nashville was in the process of doing and trying to do, and dealing with roads, bridges, and even much the airport, Mr. Mayor. So he did an excellent job. And I think we're going to be invited to another meeting sometime this month. I think Mr. Johnson had a date. I don't know if did he give you a report, Mr. Mayor.
He did.
But
He actually attended at my request.
okay, but he did an excellent job. They tried to get him, but he did a good job. James, I just want to thank you for attending the meeting. You did a good job. So that's the end of my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Alderwoman Smith, it's your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to say I'm going in and out, so I'm having a tough time to hear everything, but I do want to add something is that, there are opportunities for us to have housing built inside the city limits to increase our tax base without spending the loads of money that will have to go into extending our utilities to all the other amenities you get living in the city limits, all these other hubs. So anyway, that being said, for my report, Mr. Mayor, I want to make the motion, and this is on behalf of the police department, that we use the monies collected for the impounded vehicles and allocate them to redoing one of the police cars for the animal control officer. It's the request of our chief, and I would like to make the motion to fulfill his request.
Second.
All right, motion made, Alderwoman Smith, seconded by Alderman Davis. Discussion on the motion.
Repeat that, Ms. Mayor. Could I
Yes,
have her repeat
Alderwoman
that again?
Smith, if you could repeat your motion.
Go toward animal control bill.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, to allocate the funds collected for, that he hasn't, that are being collected for the impounding of the cars at the police station to go toward the, to making one of the police cars outfitted for the animal control officer.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Yes, Alderwoman Irving.
Okay, so one of the police cars, so would the car be equipped to carry the animal in? I mean, a truck over a car? I'm just asking.
That's what the money going there for.
For a truck?
Better get it equipped and everything.
Alderwoman,
Okay.
Alderwoman Smith, would you like to answer that question?
I'm just thinking about it.
It's my understanding it is a vehicle that's not a truck, but they'll take the back seats out, and this has been done before, and the chief has a plan for it. So I'm just trusting that he knows what he's talking about.
And Alderwoman Smith, I do want to say I've seen without the seats in it, and it does make a difference. So thank you for sharing that information.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We'll call for the question. We'll proceed to a vote. All in
Second.
favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you. Further report, Alderwoman? Do you have anything else to report, Alderwoman Smith?
I'm sorry, Mayor, it went out. I'm good for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alderwoman Irving?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to begin my report with thanking the mayor and board of aldermen, along with the committee for the Proud to Take Stand Monument. They did an excellent job. We did the rededication recently, and it was such a beautiful dedication. The ceremony was. It was really re-educating you from the Mrs. Jackson, the Jackson family, which is Mrs. Ford, and her brother, Wallace Jackson Jr., shared a wealth of information at the ceremony. Thank the former mayor, Mayor Darrell Grinnell, and the committee that he put together, which one of our members, Alderwoman Sarah Carter Smith, was a part of that committee. We just thank you. And I want to, again, thank the board for adding those 9 names that was added to that monument. It means a lot to us. And I want to tell you on behalf of my family, my brother Clarence was also a veteran. And it meant the world to my family because my brother lost his life to gun violence, to a horrific death at the age of 32. And so that was very taxing for my mother, losing her first child in that way. But he was serving his country. He was a part of the Army, and just being added, he's gone, but he's not forgotten. And his name is now engraved on a monument that not only the family, his children, and other members of the city will be able to recognize, because I've gotten a lot of calls, you see the names that are added, not just Clarence, but the other 9 names. But I'm speaking on behalf of my family, what that has done. That has helped bring closure to us. And I just want to thank this board. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you all.
One of the first things that I shared with you in the new administration, and you're very receptive of it. So I do want to say thank you again.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
The other information I want to share, I attended the Antioch Missionary Baptist forum that had taken place on March the 21st. March 3rd. And that was at Pilgrim Baptist Church. And it's the 2022 Spring Session Youth Night. And they had a great panel. The discussion was on problems and concern from our youth. It was really a great event. It was really an awesome event. And the conversation from the panel consisted of the Reverend Tracy Cusick, our Sheriff Travis Patton, our Police Chief Joseph Daughtry, Reverend Robbie Kate Ferge, Ms. Demira Magruder, and Mrs. Shanturia Spears. Mayor, the conversation was so engaging. It was well attended by members of the community, and there were questions asked and provided, and I also had a representative to come along with me, Mr. Rick Barino. He's a part of Clear Path Behavioral Unit. He was there, and he was able to get up and speak, and they're going to look for him for consulting for him with ways to help our community, our youth, to address crises that they may be facing. And so it was really a good meeting and a good outcome. It was well attended as well. And I was really happy to see that. I also I read in the paper this morning, so in advance, the CEO, Ms. Debbie Hudson Germany, is retiring. And so I just want to thank her for her years of service. It said 15 years since I've been on the board, the last 6 years. It's been great working with you, Ms. Hudson, and I just want to say thank you in advance. Also, I want to make an announcement of our next Neighborhood Watch meeting. Monteville, Ward 4 Monteville Neighborhood Watch meeting. 33 Modern Street, Macedonia Baptist Church, Monday, March 21st, 2022. The time is from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Our special guest will be our Natchez Police Chief, Joseph Daughtry, or Commander Cal Green. And we also have Mr. Rick Barino coming from Clear Path. He's going to come out in every neighborhood watch and present the information of the services that are provided to our community. And I think that is just so great because members of the community need to know what services are offered. We have a lot, but they just need to have access to it. And that ends my report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Davis.
I only have one thing. Colleen Community College will be having a career and college fair on April the 6th from 10 to 2. It will be at the Career Tech Building in the multipurpose room. And they will have people to speak with. You have a representative from the college to speak with you, and they'll meet the employees from the area and out of this area. So don't forget to bring your resumes. In my report.
All right. Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Dillard, your report.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I have one other thing.
Yes, Alderwoman Irvin.
I just want to say this, that I want to just recognize this article that came in the paper was from the Miss Lou liquor stores joining the national movement to pull Russia, make vodkas off the shelf. And I just want to acknowledge that article that made the paper because we, as Mayor Board of Aldermen, we stand in solidarity with
Mhm.
members of this community and members of the nation, that we stand with them and support them in what's going on in
Yes.
Ukraine
Yes. Thank
and
you.
Russia. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Thank you. All right, we will now move to the city clerk's report. We'll recognize now Madam Clerk.
I managed to make it over here without a copy of my report. Okay, the first item that I have is a request for approval of the February 2022 hire and termination report. I did bring an updated report and put it on each of your desks prior to the meeting, just to reflect two individuals who left, actually resigned and were not terminated. But we had no new hires, and we had three employees leave the city.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Alderwoman Hall, seconded by Alderwoman Irving. Discussion on the motion? We'll call for the question.
Oh,
We'll a second on the call for the question.
Second.
Okay, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Next item.
Okay, requesting approval of the 1st March 2022 claims docket.
What's the pleasure of the board?
so moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Hall, seconded by Alderman Davis. Discussion on the motion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Alderman Dillard.
Page 56. In the middle of the page under office supplies, I'm just curious of the vendor.
That is one that I would have to look into and let you know. My guess is that they miscoded that instead of doing professional services.
Thank you,
Or are
Mr.
you
Mayor.
requesting why we're using, what we were using that vendor for? I would have to pull the invoice.
Well, you know, envelopes and stamps might be a little more expensive.
Yeah.
I thought it was, I have one question on 21, and it may be just not understanding, but I don't remember a Greenway Environmental Services. Is that someone we've contracted with, Mr. Mayor?
I will ask the clerk to answer that.
Again, that is an invoice that I would have to pull, I believe. There, I would have to look back rather
Thank
than
you.
misquote, but I believe Greenway did have something to do with, there was a landfill, and that's digging back in several years ago of memory, but I'll find out for sure and get back with you on that.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. If you're just looking to those. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all the questions I
Thank
have
you.
on the claims docket.
Thank you, Alderman Dillard. Any other questions?
I didn't.
Yes, Alderwoman Irving.
Okay, page 20. And it was my intention, this is in highways and streets, and so it was my intention to call Mr. Dollar this morning to see, but I'm looking at the item, Peddler's Outdoor Power, and it's page 20. What equipment is that? And
I'm assuming that this is a new mower, and he did have a budgeted, monies for equipment.
Okay.
But based on the description, it looks like it's a mower of some sort.
Okay. And page 31, I just wanted to ask, Imaginary Company, what company is that? It said it had monthly contract services.
That actually predates this administration. Vidal Blankenstein, who does so much of design work for cities, the ads, the business cards, promotion of events, and she assists Dustin Hinkle in that area.
Oh, okay, so I didn't know so we pay this monthly fee every month?
That actually goes back to the Grinnell administration, and she
I
continues
didn't see it.
to do a lot of work.
Okay.
Yes, she's been on every docket since I've been mayor.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Um,
Oh,
I'm not. Oh, I just wanted to ask, and I'm not being petty, I'm just asking a question, because I know this information was disseminated on page 55. And it's supermarket operations. So my question is, did we actually make $1,900 from the father-daughter dance? Or did we make $1,000? And the reason why I'm asking, because you're putting these monies aside in an account. And so as we see these monies add up and it's a different amount, we just want to know what was the exact dollar amount.
So they did raise just over $1,900, but there were expenses that had to be
Right.
paid, you know,
So-
in regards to that event. So, you know, those will ultimately, you know, come out of the monies that were raised.
Oh,
But
I understand that, but I was just saying, so the dollar amount would not be 1,900, it would actually be a different dollar amount.
correct.
Okay,
Yes, I mean,
just,
'cause you
and the
will-
reason why I'm asking again is because when you look at that line item, it'll be specific. You're thinking it's $1,900 and it's $1,000. I'm just hypothetically throwing a number out there. So you just want accurate information.
Yeah, and she could probably get the exact expenses together and report back on that, because I know that Ms. Cole did track all of that.
Okay.
Okay.
That ends my questions.
Okay. Alderwoman Hall?
Yes, sir. I would just like to remind the board that the clerk is not going to have invoices in front of her. And if there was anything to do with an invoice, Ms. Howard would have that information prior to the board meeting to do that. If there are any questions to a department head, I suggest we do that to the department head.
Thank you. Very good point. Very good point. I do know that the clerk is there and the staff is there in excess of 40 hours a week in most cases, and always available to answer your questions. And you know that also is with regard to minutes. It's very good to get those minutes to them in advance so that our meetings run smoother. All
And
right.
I do understand that, and I try to,
Mhm.
but you know, sometimes 2 days is just not enough. We get them a week in advance after we leave the meeting and come back. And I know it's a lot of work for our clerk and staff, and I don't ask that. But most times I will call me and let them know, or I bring them up myself in person. Most times I do.
Thank you.
But there may be some times when we don't, because we do receive a lot of information even after we've gotten our first packet.
Yes, you do.
We do.
Further discussion?
Call question.
Question's been called. Second.
Second.
We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. I assume you abstain?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Irving, as normal, abstain on the section.
Yes,
Pertaining
that
to
pertain to the
fire
fire department. And I'm hearing you, Mayor, but thank you for reminding me of that, yes.
Okay, next item, Madam Clerk.
Okay, next item is request for approval of the 1st March of 2022 mini claims docket.
What was the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Motion made by Alderwoman Hall,
Second.
seconded by Alderman Davis. Any discussion on the motion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Alderman Dillard.
Claim, it's about in the middle, 1427.6 in the amount of $10,838 for property taxes.
That's correct. That's for the Fry Building. A portion of that was received from Mr. Davis when he donated. It was prorated. We received his portion. It went into the general fund. This payment was made from the general fund.
Just
So
not used to seeing the city pay property taxes. We're somewhat exempt from taxes, aren't we?
I received a bill and was told to pay it.
Mr. Callaway may educate us more. I believe that pertains to the portion of the year that it was owned by Mr. Fry. By Mr. Davis.
Mr. Davis. Actually, I'll have to look into that because we did prorate the taxes. And Mr. Davis did pay his portion for the year, for the part of the year he owned the building. I don't think the city should have been charged taxes for the rest of the year, and I will look into that all.
Well, I certainly don't want to in any way not acknowledge the generosity of Mr. Davis, and there certainly is. But essentially, the city of Natchez is not exempt from taxes. We're not necessarily a 501c3, but, when we do businesses with our vendors, sales taxes are not applied. And when we sell properties, whether it be Margaret Martin or anything else, I don't think we pay property taxes. It may be something new for me. So that was the nature of my question. One other question.
I thank you for raising it, and I'm glad Mr. Callaway is going to look into it.
One other question on the Bank of America. Is this a card? It's just, I apologize. Is this like the card I get if I go out of town to a hotel and have to register and do that kind of stuff?
Yes, the Bank of America is what we were using as our city travel cards.
Okay.
Also, I have received the new state-backed travel cards, and we'll be getting with each of you all to get those new cards to you.
So I can just in my mind look at that and know that those travel expenses, correct? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. I believe the motion should be amended to reflect approval aside, except for payment to Adams County Tax Collector, pending verification that is.
These payments have already been made.
Okay.
Yeah, the mini docket,
That's
those payments
correct.
have to go out prior to this coming
Okay.
forward, so
Well,
this is not a retroactive approval.
Okay,
To
well,
that-
we'll have approval, but pending, clarification of that matter.
Yes, sir. I mean, to that point, Mr. Mayor, if I can, just very quickly, we want to make sure that we don't use the mini docket, the small claims docket, the Thursday check, whatever you want to call it, because essentially by the time we see this is already paid. And usually it's for things like insurance premiums, things that are automatic. You really don't want to see a lot of surprises on this little piece of paper because by the time you see it, it's already been paid.
Right.
And we do try to keep these to a minimum. And it usually is, like you said, insurance payments, credit card payments, or travel expenses that are being paid to employees. But, there are occasionally other items that come up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I think Mr. Attorney.
And Mr. Callaway?
Just so the board will know, when we collected that money on those taxes for the Fry building last year, I told the clerk to go ahead and pay them. She didn't, then it pops up this late in the year, which is why when she called me, I said, pay it. I actually thought it was the $5,700 that we collected. That would be my fault. She just called and said, we need to pay these taxes. I'm like, thought they were already paid. So I will look into that. If we're entitled to refund, I will certainly seek it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion?
No question.
The question's been called. We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Just
Next item,
not including. Okay.
Okay.
Madam Clerk?
Next item is retroactive approval for authorization for the mayor to sign a 30-day extension for the ice storm loan in the amount of $556,939.81, which was done with Home Bank. And this extension would be to provide time to receive the FEMA and MEMA reimbursements, which we have been given notice that we should receive this month in March. The extension would be through April 2nd. And that is actually, we've executed that to make sure that, we kind of stay current on this loan and we don't lapse. But I do need retroactive approval on that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderwoman Hall, seconded by Alderman Davis. Discussion on the motion. We'll call for the question. We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Next item, Madam Clerk.
My last item is retroactive approval of the following interfund transfer. On March 4th, we made a transfer of $1,600 from the general fund to the 135 Visitor Center to cover docket expenses. And again, this was loan payments and so forth for the chairs and carpet at the convention center. It's still coming out of that 135 account.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion made by Alderwoman Hall, seconded by Alderman Davis. Discussion on the motion. We'll call for the question.
Call.
Second.
We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Next. Well, that's the last item. We appreciate all the work you're doing, and I know you've been hard at work, you and Ms. Bell and your team. Thank you, Madam Clerk. City Attorney's report. We've already taken care of item 1. What's the next item there, Mr. Attorney?
I want to clear up one thing with the board, though. When I said I gave it to the clerk to pay on those taxes, that was the former clerk, not our current clerk.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, we voted last meeting to accept the bid of Watkins and Eager to assist us with our recovery fund consultations. They have sent a contract, and I'm just asking the board to approve and authorize the mayor to sign this contract on behalf of the city.
So moved.
Motion made by Alderwoman Hall,
Second.
second by Alderman Dillard. Discussion on the motion.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Alderman Dillard.
Are these costs and fees recoverable from this grant?
From the
ARP,
ARP, we
ARPA?
should be able to charge, it should be, because we're dealing with the federal government. Yes, we plan to pay these out of the federal
Well,
government.
They make a reference in here, which it talks about a threshold, and James is not here, but I'm thinking of it as almost like administrative costs for administering these grants and contracts and stuff, and that's usually allowed within the terms of the grant itself. But when it questions here, this says WNE acknowledges and agrees in no event will the value of the service provider of this agreement exceed the simplified acquisition threshold for procurement activities administered under the federal award, which is currently at $250,000. So
That's specific legal language because we did a procurement under our professional services policy we adopted earlier, which is below $250,000. We can't spend over that amount. That's just illegal.
okay. Well, I'll get back with you, maybe, if there's anything else that you can help me with on that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Dillard. Any further discussion? We'll call for the question.
Call.
We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Next item.
Mr. Mayor, the next item is an amendment to the depot lease, and having discussed this with several members of the Board of Aldermen, it will probably be helpful if I go back and take the original lease and this new proposed amendment and highlight the changes before we vote on it, because it is a lot of numbers and a lot of words. So if the board doesn't want to take action on this today, I will just provide the board with the highlighted copy so you can compare the differences.
Okay. We'll just let you bring that to us at another meeting. That looks like that concludes your report, Mr. Attorney.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And a brief statement, I will say we are so grateful that work is continuing behind the scenes on the great depot project. And I believe in due time, the city of Natchez will benefit, and our citizens and our tourists will really like what they're going to see. But as with so many things, there have been delays brought about because of COVID, delivery of materials, escalating costs, and labor shortages. But we are working through that, and we look forward to seeing that eventually become a new part of our landscape. Alderwoman Hall?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I have been in communication with Mr. John Norris as well as Mr. Scott Slover, and I too am confident that this will happen, and we will be pleased with the outcome of this.
Thank you. Thank you. We now will go to the mayor's report. We have already dispensed of item 1. The next item, a discussion of enforcement regarding dilapidated property issues and violations of the city's preservation ordinance. I want to just make a brief report on this, just to let everyone know that we are stepping up enforcement in this city with regard to our ordinances against dilapidated properties and our ordinances regarding the preservation of our historic properties. We are so grateful for so many who are making improvements to Natchez. In fact, we are having record development, millions and millions of dollars in building permits now issued, and so much going on. I think the overall count is over 1,000. And if you look at what is actual true construction in that, not just utilities and whatnot, we're well above 600, well above 50 million. And so while we're glad to see all of this development, it's important for us to remember that we are a historic community. And what draws everyone to Natchez is our historic beauty, character, and charm. Natchez is one of the pioneers, along with New Orleans and Charleston, in the area of passing ordinances to protect our historic areas. That preservation ordinance has a lot of detail in it, and it absolutely governs what individuals in the preservation district can and cannot do, including the city. It is important that people realize if you're going to change anything dealing with the exterior of your property, paint, windows, doors, roof, even landscaping, even fences, even paved walkways, even the removal of large shrubbery or trees that could be deemed to be historic. All of that has to come before our Preservation Commission. And our Preservation Commission meets monthly to rule on these issues. And when someone is applying to make a change, individuals in our Department of Planning will gladly assist in that application process. Letters will go out to property owners within a 160-foot radius of the affected property, and that allows for input of residents on anything pertaining to their neighborhood. Now, this applies to our preservation district, and we are sending out notices to the owners of these properties so that people can no longer say, I didn't know. And the reason I'm making this statement today is so that it's on public record. And in fact, my article in the paper this weekend will have to do with this very topic. You're being informed now, but it's not a new ordinance. In fact, it's one of the oldest ordinances in the entire country. Just last year marked the 100th anniversary of the oldest ordinance, when New Orleans passed an ordinance for its Vieux Carré district in 1921. 10 years later, Charleston passed an ordinance, and just a few years later, in 1951, the city of Natchez passed this ordinance. It's been around a long time, and we are going to follow it, and we want people to know that. In addition to that, I am very excited that we have now approved the sale of what could be said to be the #1 dilapidated property in Natchez. And Natchez, the city, was the owner. Now that we are setting an example for our city, it's important that we make sure other property owners in our city also step forward to do the right thing. It is not legal to let your property fall into a state of disrepair. It is not legal for your grass to go uncut, for your building to become an unkempt mess and a hazard to your neighbors. We have been following, since I've been mayor, an adjudication process, and we have recently learned that that process really is not efficient. What the ordinance provides is that the city can inspect properties, the city can issue warnings, and then the city can issue citations. And the proper order of things is that after that process, if the property owner is show that they will not cooperate, then the matter will come before this board for proper adjudication. And so we have a new form that will be attached to every report of a dilapidated property condition. It will begin the documentation process of when the inspection was made, when the warning was given, when the citation, the ticket was written. And then at the end of that process, it will come to us. We are also going to be looking for funds. And perhaps the funds, Alderman Dillard, you suggested this to me in a private conversation, but perhaps the funds that the city is now going to realize from the sale of General Hospital could be put into an account to assist with the removal of serious dilapidated property that's at the point it needs to be demolished. We came into office during a pandemic time with limited budget, limited capital available. We've done our best to live within our means, but obviously if we can get more funds to assist in the cleanup of our city, that's a good thing. So I want everyone to be on notice that we will be looking to the court to enforce our ordinance. And we will be looking for enforcement both of our preservation ordinance and our ordinances against dilapidated property. And it is a new day in Natchez, and enforcement is going to be followed, and it is going to be taken seriously.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderwoman Hall?
I'd like to reiterate also that we do have an active ordinance committee as outlined in our code charter. And I'm not here to say what previous administrations did or did not do, but this administration will follow our code charter. And we do have the ordinance committee to assist in this as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion, questions regarding that?
I just want to
Yes,
say,
Alderwoman.
and I guess just get an update, Mr. Mayor. You had given us the opportunity to identify 5 properties that were dilapidated.
Yes.
And we've done that. Just want to get an update on that. Each
We
person
need
in their
to
ward.
we need to make sure each alderman has submitted that list. We'll look. We put frankly, we put that on hold because we have to identify the funds. But now with the sale of General Hospital, perhaps now we can have funds available for further cleanup in our city.
And since you mentioned it, I do want to say that, in the past, this is what we've done with adjudicated property. We have spring approaching, grass is growing. Okay, and so we have that list that we set aside that money for Public Works Department to cut those properties. And so will that begin now that we are approaching spring and overgrowth of grass? Will that just pick back up from where it left off?
Those properties that we are certain we have the legal ability to address, yes. But though any that we have any gray area, we have to be careful how we proceed. And so we are going to be asking a lot now of our building inspector department and asking them to really get out there and start a file on these grown up and dilapidated properties. And we are going to proceed now. It's not just an adjudication that people will be looking to. They're going to be getting tickets and they're going to be taken to court. And we're going to be looking at those fines.
So we created an environmental court again, or?
Oh, no, the environmental court, I just need everyone to know that has been deemed to be illegal. All of this will follow through our municipal court. And in certain cases involving the preservation ordinance, it will actually follow other courts as prescribed by the ordinance. All right. We're going to move on. The next item, I know everyone is aware, we recently revised our animal ordinance. We are very grateful for that. In the process of having all these meetings, we have learned that Spay Neuter Natchez, a nonprofit that takes care of so many needs in our community, is hurting for funds. And under the prior administration, a $1,000 donation was given to them. Now, I know we generally are going to wait until budget time to make these appropriations if they have not already been budgeted for. However, we have identified that we have 1,000 in city funds that could help with this. We right now, it is incumbent upon us to send a message that citizens need to spay and neuter their pets, because we cannot continue to see the population increase of unwanted, uncared for animals that are now becoming a burden on us, and it's also inhumane for the animals. Our new ordinance requires residents to spay and neuter their pets unless a special permit is given. Spay neuter is able to, and I believe you have the letter, spay neuter is able to do so much, and this $1,000 will actually assist them in taking care of at least 10 cats and dogs, maybe more. Along with this, we'll be asking to make this an annual contribution. But we also want to send a message to our citizens to please step up and do the right thing. And also, we want to thank our citizens who actually do their best to trap and release feral cats, and out of their own pockets, see to their care so that we can control the population.
Are you asking for a motion?
We are asking for a motion.
So moved.
Alderwoman Irving has made the motion.
Second.
Seconded by, who was that down there? Alderman Dillard? Or was it Alderman Davis?
Dylan.
Alderman Dillard. All right. Thank you for that motion. We'll open it up for discussion.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Alderman Dillard.
I agree 100%, and I'm very taken by your strong support of this, and I think that's where we need to be with this. I would like to go a little further, and it may take a little discussion and a little understanding, is that any fees or fines that we collect under our animal control ordinances, I think should be applied to the problem at hand, which is overpopulation. And the first remedy to that is the spade and neutering program. So let's say someone, is wants to be a breeder and they want to put their $1,200 up or whatever it was. Those monies could go through our animal control efforts through the spade and neuter program. Just for consideration. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I like that idea. Thank you, Alderman Dillard. That's a great idea.
Mr.
And
Mayor,
we'll look at that going forward.
our animal
Alderwoman
control
Hall.
officer also needs equipment.
Yes, in fact, we are utilizing those funds right now to get the equipment where it needs to be. We've made a good effort in getting that equipment up to par. But yes, going forward, as we see how the funds come in and how they can be appropriated, perhaps that will provide more opportunity for spay neuter. I think it's a great idea. Further discussion? We'll call for the question. We'll now proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. The next item, Duncan Park. We are, as you know, now offering new carts. These new carts come at a cost. In addition to that, however, we're seeing an increase in the desire for there to be single riders, perhaps due to COVID and other, safety concerns. The golf prices have been unchanged for some time, and yet, as we're all reading in the news, the cost of gas is skyrocketing. The price changes are happening even as we speak. And so you'll see there is an item that goes into this in more detail. And so the cart fee per rider is currently $15, and there is no incentive to ride with another player. So the manager of the golf course is asking that single riders be charged $20. And he's also asking that there be a $1 increase in cart fees from $15 to $16 per rider. This actually will still have us competitive and lower than the nearest golf course, Beaupre. And I think it's a reasonable ask in light of the increase in gas cost and other issues. So I'd like to ask for a motion.
So moved.
Motion made by Alderwoman Hall, second.
Second.
Second by Alderman Davis. Discussion on the motion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Frazier.
I just got one question. Those cars electric, or you keep saying gas, are they electric or gas?
The
The gas?
I wish they were electric.
Next time
This-
around, we need to look
yeah.
at that.
The increase, do that go in to the funds and to the city funds, what? This increase, do we?
Yes.
Okay.
The city collects these cart fees, and then it goes toward the operation of the golf course. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the carts also have now windshields, which they did not have before, nor golf club covers. So they're all new amenities
Yeah.
to these carts as well.
Thank you, Alderwoman Hall. We'll call for the question.
Called.
We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, motion carries. And I do want to, yes, Alderman Frazier.
It might be feasible, it might not. I'm just gonna make a suggestion. This increase that we are putting in Duncan Park, would it be feasible if we posted in the newspaper, let everyone know?
Yes, certainly. Thank you.
Facebook.
Thank you, Ms. Griffey.
That there will be an increase, so it won't be a sticker shock when they
Thank
go out
you.
there and find out that.
Thank you, Alderman Frazier. And we will ask also that notice be posted at the golf course immediately. And you know, the motion did not indicate, I would assume that change will take place immediately. Yeah, there was no other. All right. Miscellaneous updates. I just want to say we are elated that Congress has approved the inclusion of $2.4 million for Morgantown Road in its omnibus spending bill. We expect the president to sign that bill next week, and we are very grateful to our congressional leaders, to Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith for making sure it got added in appropriations, for Congressman Michael Guest for making sure the same was done in the House, for Senator Roger Wicker for working behind the scenes to push this along. And we really want to thank our government consultants, Manning McPhillips, former Congressman Greg Harper, have done so much for Natchez, Adams County. In addition to getting this in the bill, they also were able to get over $500,000 in more funds for future development of Forks of the Road. And so I just want to say thank you to the aldermen, to the supervisors who continually support our contract with these lobbyists. They have brought millions of dollars for the airport. They have brought these funds and so many others. And there's so many other things now at work. So we just say thank you. And I say to the critics who questioned us a year and a half ago, why are you going to hire lobbyists? I would hope that the proof is in the pudding.
And we'll continue not to support that. Yes.
And that any critics to this have now been silenced. I think we definitely have gotten a good return on our investment, and we continue to get a good return. That money from Morgantown Road will not be made available immediately. It is the first time in over 10 years that an earmarked funding strategy has been passed by Congress. And so protocols now have to be put in place. Some departments that handle handle the last earmarking bill are not even around anymore. And so it could be 9 months or more. We don't know until those funds truly are made available to MDOT and then made available to the county. This will be a county project, but it will include the portion that is in the city limits as well. Now, the 2.4 million, we are not sure if it will cover the entire cost. This, as you know, is a design that was done several years ago. We have asked the question just this morning, and yes, the plans are being updated. And we will know more later in the year as the money becomes available, how this will proceed. But my hope is that we will see true change coming to pass within the next year. This is an important step in the process. And how many years have we all been waiting? And finally, funds have been made available. So just had to make that report. Alderwoman Irving had her hand up, then Alderman Frazier, then Alderman Davis.
Okay, just thank you for sharing it, but I just want to read this text that Chief Dalton just sent. And it reads as follows. The city of Natchez has been awarded the opportunity to host the 2022 Chief Winters Conference in December by unanimous vote of the entire executive board of the Mississippi Chiefs Association.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
That's great
That is
news.
great.
Thank
Great
you.
news.
Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
We're very proud of our
It's
chief
really
representing us.
Absolutely.
Yes, oh, that's great. Chief Daughtry is the incoming president of the Mississippi Chiefs Association.
Yes.
And this will be the second time in just a few years
Mhm.
our police chief has been president of that association, and Natchez has hosted that conference, so we're just really grateful.
Absolutely.
Yes, Alderman Frazier, you, and
Yes,
then
I just
Alderman
want,
Davis.
just want, on Morgantown, we waited all these many years, we can wait a couple more to get this done, because the Morgantown Road is I didn't realize it till, that is one of the most traveled roads in the county almost.
Yep.
And it benefits everyone on the north side of town. And as I stated, the money can come 9 months as long as they get it done. Those people in that area inspect, they're gonna be so happy that they can get that done.
That's right. That's right.
That's all I
Thank you.
can say, man. And
Thank
I like to thank the past and present Board of Supervisors and the Board of Aldermen for putting this effort forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Alderman Davis?
I just want to read a letter that was sent to the fire chief. It said, "Dear Chief Arrington, I just want you and your group of firemen who came to my house Friday, January 28, 2022, to know how much I appreciate the quick response and thorough inspection. It was so frightening, but I was so pleased with your attention to my call. Sincerely, Charlotte Copeland."
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Davis, for sharing that. Thank you. Well, this concludes all the business we had on the agenda. Anything else?
Nope.
I will entertain,
So moved.
yes, wait, Mr. Callaway?
Oh, we need to talk about this.
We do need an executive session?
I think so.
Okay. We do have a matter of pending litigation that the city attorney would like to update the members of the board and the mayor on. So this will require a motion that we go into executive session for that. And this constitutes our open determination. That motion has been made by Alderman Davis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Frazier. Are there any opposed to the motion? Hearing none, we will now go into executive session. And Jan, we're discussing a litigation matter. We are back. I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn our executive session, return to regular session.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Frazier, seconded by Alderman Davis. Any opposed to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. I will give this report. We discussed matters pertaining to litigation or potential litigation. The city was, our city officials were briefed on the matter by the city attorney. The matter was taken under advisement. No action was taken. With that said, is there any other business for today? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion made by Alderman Hall and seconded by Alderman Davis. Any opposed to the motion?
No.
Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you so much.